Hi everybody, how are you doing today? Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Another Wednesday session here, and today I'm going to be talking about oxalates. I didn't have this on the list of things to talk about, and the reason I wanted to chat about this today, my kitten's going crazy, she's about to knock everything over. The reason I wanted to talk about this today is because I got asked by a few different people last week on my last Facebook Live talking about histamine, what about oxalates? So I just want to go into it a little bit more and kind of talk about what to look out for when it comes to oxalates, what oxalates are, what problems they can cause, how oxalates can contribute to your hormones, the connection between oxalates and histamine, also the mood changes you might see with a high oxalate diet. And then I also want to talk a little bit about Candida and Mould and how they're related to oxalates. And then I just want to give you 3 ways to support yourself in terms of any oxalate issues, particularly during this phase that I'm focusing on. So I've been focusing on the luteal phase in your cycle. The luteal phase is where you might experience these extreme mood swings. You may get anger, agitation, insomnia. You may also get physical symptoms like pain, flare-ups from autoimmune conditions. So I want to just bring this all together and talk about oxalates. And through it, you'll notice how some of the things that I talk about in terms of what might be good for you to support oxalate toxicity and support some of your symptoms are actually some of the things that we're told to take to support our hormones. So it's really interesting how all of these things are connected. When you start seeing what supplements and why we take them, it can actually empower you, and then you can actually then decide for yourself, okay, this supplement is doing this, it's working for me, so this must be a problem, rather than just taking a supplement and not knowing why it works. Does that make sense? So I think it's really empowering, and it's great to know this stuff. Before I kick off, I do want to let you all know that I am starting, I'm kicking off a program. Sorry I'm laughing like this. My cat is going mental over there and I feel like everything's gonna fall on me in a minute. I am completing a 6-week program, and it's called Calm Your Moods, Calm Your Cyclic Moods. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, I do have a link below, which is just a wait list, and so you'll be the first to find out, and I'll give you some details on it. But that's for the ladies out there that are having issues with your cycle, your mood swings, agitation, anger, depression and anxiety. I'm actually kicking off with a 6-week program, and we're going to be over the 6 weeks I'll be going through with diet plans, meal plans, recipes, supporting you with videos, supplements, and just giving you an idea of how to curb these mood swings, and giving you the tools so you can actually go forward and change these for the better. So the wait list is just below, so you can sign up there. So oxalates they're an organic molecule, and they're found primarily in plants. So they're kind of like sharp, they're kind of like glass. And now they're in plants, and they're normally bound to other minerals, calcium, magnesium. And the reason plants have them, one of the main reasons is protection. So we find more oxalates in plants that are kind of grown in conditions where there's a lot of wind, high altitude. So let's think about that for a moment. So coffee can be planted in high altitude. So coffee's got high oxalate value. And then we've got plants like, say, curly kale has more oxalates than say flat kale, because it's being grown in conditions where it's had to get that hard surface, but also windy conditions. So oxalates are there for the plant protection, and they really don't serve any purpose in human beings, and we actually don't know how to metabolize them. In plants, they are used for protection, and they are also used to get the minerals from the ground. So the oxalates will help bind to calcium. So it's kind of like the plant will suck the calcium up from the soil, through its roots, through the water. That will help bind to the oxalates. And that's how they survive. And then, of course, what happens is we eat the plants. So we eat the plants, and we get this kind of like download of oxalates. For some people, it's perfectly fine. For other people, it's not so good. And I'll talk about why in a moment and who this is not so good for. But we eat these oxalates, and our body then has to process them. So the first thing that happens with oxalates is they bind to the calcium in the food. So if you were to have a big leafy salad, for example, you were to have spinach, you may not be getting all the calcium you think you're getting from that spinach because the oxalates are bound to it. So the oxalates will make sure it's excreted from your body. So that's the first thing that can be happening. The other thing is they do bind to other minerals like copper, and they also bind to iron. So you might find that there's some sort of mineral deficiencies going on there. So that's one way that we get the oxalates in our diet. Another way is from mold. So actual black mold spores in our environment. So if we've been in an environment where there's a lot of mold, that can actually raise our oxalate levels. And so that's one thing. But interestingly enough, and this is the connection to Candida, we can actually get oxalates produced internally from internal yeast infections like Candida. So I'm going to talk about that because that ties in very nicely with estrogen and hormones and why you might be feeling specific symptoms at a specific time in your cycle. Now, another place that we can get oxalates, and it's high in oxalates, vitamin C. So this isn't for everybody. So I'm fine with vitamin C. I can take high dose vitamin C, and I've got clients that thrive on high dose vitamin C. But if you do high dose vitamin C, you know, more than 1500 milligrams a day, and you notice any of the symptoms I'm going to talk about, that's a big indication that your kidneys and your bowel are not processing and removing the oxalates as quickly as they should do. So that's an indication that you might be having problems with the oxalates. Oxalates are a huge issue, and one of the biggest signs, obviously, kidney stones. Kidney stones are a huge sign. Urinary tract infections, urinary tract pain, swollen vagina, painful, swollen, stinging. You know, it might happen cyclically. It's the area around the vagina. It might get all red, and instead of being itchy, it's more of that like burning sensation. So when we think of oxalates, we think burning, we think pain, we think sharp, because they are sharp. So you would imagine that they feel sharp in the body. So it's like a sharp pain rather than an itchiness. That's a sensation. They can cause asthma, they can cause body pain, so fibromyalgia, they can cause joint pain, headaches. Foot pain is a big one, so it's sort of like you're walking on glass. That's how it might feel for your feet. Also, eye pain is something. So if you have a lot of vitamin C, or you have oxalates in your diet and you have a problem with overload of oxalates, you might get sort of sharp eye pain. Remember that it's sharp. Also, it can exacerbate Candida, because what studies have found is Candida thrives around oxalate crystals, kind of grows around it. So they go hand in hand. Another thing is hormone balances, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Blood test results. You might get a blood test result that has low DHEA, and this is to do with a sulfate. So what oxalates tend to do is they bring down your sulfate levels, and we need sulfate as a precursor to DHEA, which is a sulfate-bound mineral. So we need that. And so what can happen is, if the oxalates kind of deplete and steal the sulfur, we don't have enough in our body to detox our liver through sulfation and also create hormones like DHEA. So if you have low blood DHEA, that could be one of the reasons that you've got low blood DHEA, so look out for that. So think of signs and symptoms. So I was asked, what's the difference between histamine and oxalates? So histamine brings a reaction to your body where there's an immune response to the skin surface. It brings white blood cells, it brings blood, you get heat, you get redness, and you get itchiness most of the time. With oxalates, it's more pain. You get that stinging, you get that painful irritation. You might get it around the mucous membranes. You might get burning, rawness in the mouth, in the vulva, in the eyes. So think of it like that. It's more of that burning sensation. It's very different. And it won't improve with antihistamines so much, whereas a histamine reaction will improve with antihistamines quite quickly. So in terms of oxalates in your hormone balance, so when we consume oxalates, they normally sit in the gut, and either we'll remove them through the gut or the kidneys, or it'll get reabsorbed through the gut lining. This is where we can get issues with leaky gut, and this leaky gut can cause problems with hormones. So leaky gut can cause reabsorption of hormones like estrogen. So if your estrogen metabolites, so if your liver has tried to detox estrogen metabolites, it goes through the bowel. And if you've got an oxalate issue, your body will reabsorb those hormones, so you're more likely to be estrogen dominant. Another thing that will happen with the leaky gut is thyroid hormones not being able to be made properly. So we make our thyroid hormone in our thyroid, which is T4. This will go to other areas of the body, and this will make T3 hormone. Now this T3 is the active hormone. A lot of this is made in the gut, but the gut has to be super healthy, really great bacteria. If we have any issue with oxalates and we have leaky gut, our body won't be able to effectively make this T3 hormone. So you might have issues with hypothyroidism, you might have leaky gut symptoms, and a lot of the times you might have issues with Hashimoto's. So if you are a Hashimoto sufferer or suffer badly with hypothyroidism that you can't really get on top of, have a look at your diet. And look at the oxalates in your diet. If you've got a high oxalate diet, this is why people with thyroid problems, one of the reasons we don't prescribe, a high sort of raw spinach diet, those raw spinach green smoothies, because it can interact with the thyroid. What studies have found is when they've done some dissecting of the thyroid and they've looked at it closely, oxalate crystals can actually reside in the thyroid, and so they seem to build up and cause those thyroid problems. That has been found in Hashimoto's patients. So definitely if you've got Hashimoto's, you might want to have a look at this kind of oxalate diet and just supporting yourself a little bit more by lowering those. Another thing that oxalates can do in the body is they can lower sulfate. And so I've talked about that a little bit more, but adrenal hormones require sulfate to bind, and so they can act in the body. And so if we've got low sulfate in the body, we're going to have lower DHEA, lower testosterone, and lower adrenal hormones. And another thing that will happen is this sulfation in the liver. We have sulfation in the liver that's a wonderful detoxification process. It helps to get rid of paracetamol, it helps to get rid of environmental toxins, it helps to get rid of xenoestrogens, it helps to get rid of BPA. We require sulfates, and if we don't have this due to, say, the oxalates bringing it down or a low sulfur intake in our diet, our liver's not going to be able to process those effectively, and we can actually then get that buildup of hormones, the buildup of xenoestrogens, and that's when we can start to get that estrogen dominance. So we can see how these oxalates, particularly if we're sensitive to them and our body is not processing them, can build up in our body. People that are more likely to have issues, definitely those with MTHFR, are more likely to sort of build up this intolerant to oxalates, detox them less effectively. This is why those people with MTHFR might have more kidney problems. And if you do have kidney problems and if you're prone to stones, you do want to have a low oxalate diet. It's really important just to give your kidneys a break. But definitely those with MTHFR, those who have had their gallbladder removed. So we need our gallbladder to remove all of these toxins, all of these estrogens. It's one of the most important organs in our body to remove these. And if we've had our gallbladder removed, it's going to cause this imbalance between toxins in our body and also these high oxalates. So our body's going to have to start to prioritize, okay, what's the liver going to effectively get rid of? What's going to stay? How are we going to do that? So if you know you've got gallbladder problems, if you've had your gallbladder removed, you need to just be aware of oxalates, particularly if you have these severe symptoms. That's really important. And then also when it comes to hormones and when it comes to oxalates, oxalates tend to deplete our B6. Now this is where it's really cool, because this is where everything starts coming together. So, what's one of the nutrients that we are told helps us with PMT? One of the nutrients that helps us with PMT is B6. And so we're given B6 for PMT, and some of us might feel better, some of us no change. Those of us that feel better, it's interesting to look at, could that be an oxalate issue? Because we know that oxalates can deplete our B6. We need B6 to help us deal with oxalates. And then we know that giving around 50 up to 200 milligrams of B6 can help support symptoms and can help reduce levels of oxalates in our body. So we've got a really nice connection going on there where we can see why B6 might help us and why it might not help other people. So another connection to hormones and oxalates is that what we found is oxalates tend to converge and live around Candida in the body. And it looks like Candida actually makes oxalates as well. And so we've got this kind of vicious cycle, and I've talked about Candida before, where Candida is thriving. It thrives particularly in the luteal phase of our cycle when our estrogen levels start to come up. So our estrogen levels might be coming up. Our estrogen is then feeding our Candida, and you might be getting things like thrush, symptoms like thrush, or your dandruff might be getting worse, or your itchy eyes might be getting worse, or you might be getting gut symptoms because the Candida's coming up, or you might even be getting sugar cravings because the Candida's causing sugar cravings. And so the Candida's coming up, which then is causing the oxalates to have a good time, and maybe there's less that are being excreted and more that are staying in the body. And then both of these being high are causing more estrogen. The more estrogen then drives in, and it's like this positive feedback. It's then causing the Candida and the oxalates to thrive even more. And this is why in that luteal phase of the cycle, you might experience high oxalate symptoms. So not everybody does, but I want to talk about oxalates and your moods and the symptoms that you might feel, particularly in this part of your cycle. So with oxalates, you might feel more anxious. Anxiety is a big one with oxalates. And you might suffer from insomnia. So this is in the luteal phase, anxiety and insomnia. But you may also, and you most likely will be suffering from some kind of pain exacerbation. So if you're getting a pain exacerbation, particularly some kind of sharp pain, or you're getting any mucous membranes that are swelling, are getting red, are getting painful, irritated, if you're getting those mucous membranes, plus you're getting this exacerbation of anxiety, then this is a big sign that oxalates could be an issue for you. So it's more that anxiety and that insomnia we're looking at. So anxiety, insomnia. Now we'll also have lower serotonin because we need the sulfate for the serotonin. So lower serotonin will mean the anxiety. Lower serotonin will mean this mind chatter, mind thoughts going around and around and around. And then of course the DHEA and the cortisol might also come down as well, which might lead to fatigue. I want to tell you quickly about what I feel if I eat raw spinach. I'm not very good with raw spinach, and even too much cooked spinach, but it's mainly just raw spinach. And I think this is where this whole methodology of mixing things with dairy is why it's done. We've got the cheese and we've got the spinach and cheese pasty. We have we have these beautiful kind of pies and pastries which spinach, but they mix it with cheese, whether it's feta, and this cream is mixed with spinach. The reason being is because when we eat the spinach, we're being deprived of that kind of calcium in the spinach because of the oxalates. Now, I find when I eat spinach, I feel extremely tired. But if I have spinach with dairy, I feel fine. So it's like that calcium is counteracting the oxalates and anything that might be going on in your body. So even if you have spinach and you mix it with a little bit of calcium, and if you don't like dairy, what you can do is if you're making a green smoothie and you've got greens in there, you can mix it with a natural calcium. I know Livestream make a really nice natural powder. You can mix that in. It actually makes a difference. But I find, having my dairy with spinach, no problem. If I was just to have raw spinach on its own, I would feel tired immediately afterwards. It's instant fatigue for me. I noticed that. So it's interesting in terms of what it does in the body, but that lower serotonin, we've got anxiety and insomnia, and we've got the fatigue as well. So those are the kind of the telltale symptoms, coupled with either pain, so hand pain, foot pain, fibromyalgia worsened, headaches might worsen, or you might find that you get flare-ups of issues with mucous membranes. So a swollen vagina, painful, the vulva might get red, sore, inflamed, you might get issues in the mouth, pain,
eye pain, stabbing in the eyes, or any mucous membrane. It's that pain. So sorry, I keep saying pain. I shouldn't. It's not a nice word, is it? So those are the symptoms to look out for. And not everyone's going to have issues with oxalates. I can drink coffee and I'm fine. I drink a black tea. I'm pretty sure of my dose tolerance. For me, it's just that spinach. And I do include calcium supplementations in my diet. That's really, really important. Another thing that can happen, and this is where it gets a bit confusing, is that the enzyme that breaks down histamine also gets depleted by oxalates. So what can happen is if you have a high oxalate diet, you're breaking down the DOA enzyme that helps to break down histamine, and that's falling. And so what that's allowing histamine to get a bit higher in your body, and then you might have more histamine symptoms. So remember the difference with histamine. Histamine's more allergy, heat, itchy, sneezy. Itchy irritation hits histamine is more runny eyes. Oxalates are more pain. And with histamine, again, we do get the insomnia and the anxiety and maybe a hyperaction. With the oxalates, you might get the anxiety and then also coupled with fatigue as well. So they are different, and that's why it's important to look at how you feel during your cycle. And we're looking at particularly this luteal phase, because these are when these symptoms get exacerbated. So it's really important to really hone it down to this luteal phase. Reason being is because in the luteal phase, our detoxification pathways slow down. The gallbladder has a lot to do. It's got to process all the hormones from when you ovulated. The liver has more to do. It's got to then take the estrogen and the hormone metabolites out of the body. The kidneys have got a lot more to do. The progesterone might be higher, so you've got more urine being excreted because it's a diuretic. There's more going on in the gut because there's more hormones circulating. You also have lower calcium and magnesium levels at this time as well. So that's why in the luteal phase, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, why in the luteal phase that calcium and magnesium can actually help you a lot. And also during the luteal phase, you've got lower B6. We need B6 to make progesterone. So if you're sensitive to oxalates and this is pushing your B6 down, you might be at risk of having low progesterone. We need that B6. This is why some people thrive on B6. So you have to find what works for you and what you thrive on and what works, with your symptoms. So if you suspect any of this, it's the first thing that's good to do is to reduce those oxalates, because you'll know, and particularly in the luteal phase, reducing them in the luteal phase and not having that kind of oxalate loading in your body. So that's foods like chocolate. I'm sorry, I'm going to be the most hated person on the internet. I'm talking about histamine and I'm telling you not to have chocolate. And I'm talking about oxalates and I'm telling you not to have chocolate. But I'm starting to see it firsthand with clients. They're really thriving when they stop the chocolate, because we're so used to having cacao because it's healthy. It's good for us. It's got antioxidants. It's got polyphenols. It's also good for our moods. But at the same time, it's not going to suit everybody. You'll know if cacao or chocolate suits you. And it's if you're getting these symptoms and they're not going away. If you're really getting anxious, if you're suffering with pain in your luteal phase, you're getting these symptoms, they're not going away, you need to start to entertain the fact that there's a couple of things that might be healthy and you might love, but they're not working for you. Chocolate, coffee, chocolate is one. And let's just look at that for a moment. What's one of the things that we eat a lot of because it's healthy for us at the moment? It's part of the raw food revolution, and it's raw cacao. So we're not mixing it with dairy. The same with coffee. We've started having coffee with almond milk, with soy, or with no milk. So we're not having that dairy to counteract. So this might be one of the reasons some of you are getting these symptoms. So, either counteracting it with a calcium supplement, that can be good, or just quitting it altogether can be during your luteal phase can be really helpful. So, spinach, legumes, coffee, chocolate, all high in oxalates. Foods that are not high in oxalates are your usual, your fish, your pastured meats. Bananas are not high. Green apples are not high. Cabbage is low in oxalate. Celery is low. Broccoli is low. Cauliflower, cucumber, mushrooms, they're all low in oxalate. So there's lots of vegetables that are low in oxalate. So have a look at your diet and just take, if you're consuming a lot of something. So for example, I know, some people might consume 4 squares of Lindt dark chocolate a night, particularly during the luteal phase. If that's you, just stop that. And just see how you feel, particularly if you're suffering from these symptoms. I do have some clients that have chocolate at night and it stopped them from sleeping. They've given up the chocolate and they've been good, they've got back to sleep. So look at the diet first and foremost and experiment with that. Give yourself a couple of weeks. You'll know, this is the beauty of it, you'll know if you cut these things out that you have every day, you will know and you will feel better. Now, I caveat that with you don't want to have a completely zero oxalate diet, because what happens then is you start to load the oxalate out of the body and that can cause more symptoms. So you just want to take out those main big boys that you're having majority of the time. So do that first. Then just have a look at what you're supplementing during your luteal phase. Now, it's good to always get advice from a naturopath or your GP in terms of dosage, well, more a naturopath, but in terms of dosage. But B6, in the luteal phase, if you're suffering from pain, if you're suffering from a lot of anxiety and you take B6, 50 to 200 milligrams and you feel better, good, that's good for you, that's good. Not everyone will feel better, but that's giving you an indication, okay, I need that B6, I'm low in B6. Particularly if you've got pylorrhea, you've got low zinc and low B6, oxalates will be more of an issue. So supplement with that B6. Calcium citrate. We use calcium citrate for PMT. It's one of the go-tos for pain. It's one of the go-tos for PMT. It's wonderful. And what do you know? Calcium helps to counteract oxalate toxicity and when you have oxalates in the diet. So if you have a cup of coffee, you can take a calcium supplement with it. If you have a green smoothie with spinach in or greens, you can add some natural calcium to it. You can do that so you can support yourself. So B6, and then we're looking at calcium. Calcium is very good for pain. If you're in pain, if you're suffering from fibromyalgia, if you're getting foot pain, sharp pain, eye pain, vulvar pain, if you're getting any of this pain, particularly during the luteal phase, supplement with some calcium citrate. See if it works. You'll know again. You'll be able to tell in half an hour, is the pain better? And then lastly, magnesium. Magnesium also counteracts that kind of oxalates. We know that oxalates deplete magnesium. So if you suffer from a lot of pain or headaches or anxiety in your luteal phase, take a little bit of magnesium, 500 milligrams Amino Chelate, and just see how it makes you feel. So those are the 3 supplements. Remove the big boys, oxalates, from your diet and just add in alternatives. Or if there's something you don't want to remove, take a calcium supplement when you're eating it. And lastly, just be aware of the gut health. So we know that there are some gut bacteria that break down oxalates and can prevent leaky gut. And it's not the whole array of probiotics. So the particular one is Plantarum. Lactobacilli plantarum, and so that one will support your gut, support the leaky gut, and it will help to break down oxalates if you know oxalates are a problem. And of course, if you know you've got severe Candida, then that needs to be dealt with. And I've done a video on Candida, how to support that through upping your zinc, through doing castor oil packs. So that's it in a nutshell with oxalate. So really what I wanted to do is I wanted to just hone in the differences between histamine, itchy, red, rashy, sneezy, immune response. Oxalates are molecules that are entering your body that are like glass. They're more painful, they cause inflammation, they cause burning. They're a little bit different. So you should be able to figure out if you're that histamine or if you're that oxalate, or neither. It might be something else that's going on. It could just be low serotonin. But this is where oxalates are involved in your luteal phase, and this is how they can cause those mood disturbances through your cycle. So if you need to have a look at that, you just go with those 3 suggestions I gave with the supplements, taking the diet out, adding low oxalate foods in. And you should notice that you'll feel better in a couple of weeks if this is something that's an issue for you. So I hope you found that helpful. It was a joy to present this one to you, and I really hope you got something out of it. And just a reminder that I've just kicked off, I'm going to be kicking off a 6-week program, Calm Your Monthly Moods.
and that's going to be starting in about a month. But in the meantime, if you want to hear more about it, just click on the waitlist below. You'll go on the waitlist and I'll just let you know when things are kicking off. We're probably going to do a masterclass before then, so you'll get information for that. And then I'll also let you know when the program's kicking off, so you'll be the first to know. So I hope you're going to have a great day. If you've got any questions on oxalates, please pop them below. So I'll see you next week. Bye.